Okay, we're on Daf Chaf Beis Amud Aleph.
No, we didn't finish the body.
I'm sorry, I did not give the shir yesterday. So you got up to the bottom of Chaf Aleph Amud Beis?
Not to the end, 4 or 5.
All right, so the Gemara is in the middle of trying to understand the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Because Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah disagrees with the Tanakama. The Tanakama says that when you're a Balkari, you're only allowed to be Maharher Kriya Shema. You can only think of Kriya Shema without reciting it. And Rabbi Yehuda says you can say not only the Kriya Shema, but also the Berachos of Kriya Shema. And the Gemara is trying to get clarification on Rabbi Yehuda's Shita. So where are you up to? What? How many lines up?
It's like the second of the widest line.
Okay, Tanan. So let's take a look at a Mishnah. Zav Shara Keri V'nida Shapolta Shichva Zera Hamishameshes V'rasa Dam Nida Srichin Tvila. Now all of these cases are people who have both a Keri Tuma plus a higher form of Tuma. That's the common link between all three of them. They are a Zav, who is going to be tummy for 7 days, but in the interim of counting 7 days, he also is Roa Keri, and he goes to, so all of these people, and the same thing is by Anida Shapolta Shichva Zera, she's a Nida, but she also emits Shichva Zera from intercourse, so she too has the problem of being a Balkari in order for her to be able to recite blessings and so forth. And Hamishameshes V'roas Adam, and not even a woman who has relations with her husband is judged as a Balkari, and therefore if she is afterwards becomes a Nida, then in all of these situations they require Tvila. The Rabbi Yehuda Poter, and Rabbi Yehuda says that you're exempt. So the Gemara wants to make a diuk as follows. Ad kan lo poter Rabbi Yehuda ela bezav shara keri de meikar alav bar tfilahu. It seems like from this brisa that Rabbi Yehuda says that there's no point in this tefillah because since you already have a higher form of tumah, going to mikvah for your keri is not going to help. However, abol bal keri greida michayev. But surely Rabbi Yehuda would hold that you can't make any brachos until you go to the mikvah if you're just a bal keri. The Gemara was trying to entertain the possibility that according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're allowed to recite the words of Kriya Shema and its blessings out loud, even though you're a Balkari. The Gemara says, but you see from this Mishnah, not that way. You see from this Mishnah that Rabbi Yehuda does require a Balkari who doesn't have any other higher forms of Tumah to go to mikvah. So v'chitemahu adin dafilu Balkari greater nami poter Rabbi Yehuda v'hayda komiflagi b'zav shira keri lo diacha kochan derabanan. Maybe you'll tell me that in reality Rabbi Yehuda holds that even a regular Balkari doesn't go to mikvah, he doesn't need to go to mikvah, he can just recite brachas and Kriya Shema normally. And the whole reason why he's discussing these specific cases of where there's a Balkari plus a higher form of Tumah is to tell you to what extent the Chachamim require you to go to mikvah. That even though your tefillah is not going to alleviate your higher form Tumah, they still require you to go to mikvah to allow you to recite Kriya Shema. Maybe that's one way of looking at it. But Ema Seifa, but then take a look at the second part of that Mishnah, which says, Hamishameshes V'roas Adam Sricha Tvila, that if a woman has relations and then she becomes a Nida, then she needs to go to mikvah. So Laman Katanila, for whom is this case written? Ilema l'Rabbanan, if you're going to tell me that it's for the Chachamim, so then Pshita. If you're going to tell me that it's for the purpose of the Chachamim, could you guys speak somewhere else? Guys, go somewhere else. Go down the hall. Ilema l'Rabbanan Pshita. If you're going to tell me that it's for the Chachamim, so then that's obvious that according to the Chachamim you have to go to mikvah because umazav shira keri de meikar alav bar tfilahu mechayvi Rabbanan hamishameshes v'ras adam nida de meikar bas tfilahi lo kol shekei. If the Chachamim already require a person who is a Zav, who is not capable of going to mikvah for his own tumah, and yet they still require him to go to mikvah because he's roa keri afterwards, then surely a woman who first had relations and then became a nida, so at the time when she became the tumah of tumas balkeri, she was capable of going to the mikveh, then surely the Chachamim would require her to go to the mikveh. In other words, the Gemara's argument at this point is, what's the need to tell me that such a woman who had relations and then became a nida needs to go to the mikveh to alleviate her tumas keri? If I already know that a zav, who afterwards was roa keri, goes to mikveh, then surely a woman who became a balkeri before becoming a nida surely has to go to mikveh. Elalav Rabbi Yehuda he v'davka kitaniva. Mishameshes verasa nida einat tzricha tvila val balkeri greida michayev. So the Gemara says we must conclude that this was written in order to teach me the halacha according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda neither requires tvila b'mikveh for a zav who is roa keri, or for a mishameshes sharasa damnida. In both cases, since they have a higher level tumah, then the going to the mikveh is inconsequential for their keri. However, in a regular case of a bal keri, where there's no other higher level of tumah, Rabbi Yehuda clearly holds that you have to go to mikveh. You have to go to mikveh. So if that's the case, we're back to our question. How can you suggest that according to Rabbi Yehuda, recitation is permitted for a balkeri? You see that he requires you to go to mikveh. So the Gemara answers, Lo tema mivarech ela maharher. So the Gemara's answer is that no, we have to modify our understanding of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't mean that you're allowed to recite the words of Kriya Shema and its brachos, but rather he holds that you're allowed to think the words of Kriya Shema and think the brachos. And therefore the machlokus between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim is simply, can you be maharher the brachos of Kriya Shema or not? The Tanakama says no, and Rabbi Yehuda says yes, but they both agree that as a balkeri, you're not allowed to recite, you're only allowed to be maharher, you're only allowed to think. Frek the Gemara umi isle la Rabbi Yehuda hirhor. Since when does Rabbi Yehuda say that only hirhor is permitted? V'hatanya, look at the following brisa. Balkeri she'ein lo mayim litvol kori kriya shema ve'eno mevarich lo lefaneha v'lo la'achareha. That if a person is a balkeri and he doesn't have the ability to go to mikveh because there's no water, so then what's the halacha? He recites Kriya Shema, does not make the brachos before or after, and va'ochel pito u'mevarech la'achareha ve'enu mevarech lefaneha, and he can eat bread, but he only says birkas hamazon but not hamotzi. Avol maharher belibo ve'enu motzi bisvasav, and all of the aforementioned is only permitted as far as thinking, but not as far as reciting. That's according to Rabbi Meir, Divrei Rabbi Meir. But what does Rabbi Yehuda say in that brisa? Rabbi Yehuda Omer ben kachu ben kach motzi bisvasav. Rabbi Yehuda says that in both of those cases, a person is allowed to say it, to recite it with his mouth. So you see very clearly that according to Rabbi Yehuda, if you're a balkeri, you're allowed to recite. So don't tell me that according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're only allowed to be maharher. Concludes the Gemara, Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak, Asan Rabbi Yehuda ki hilchos derech eretz. So my understanding of what this line of the Gemara means is as follows. Really, Rabbi Yehuda, in our Mishnah, we're going back to our original contention. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you are allowed to recite the words if you're a balkeri, but not wholesale Talmud Torah. That you're not allowed to recite. You can't sit down and start reading the Torah. You can't sit down and start davening the whole davening. The only thing that you're allowed to do for Rabbi Yehuda is to recite Kriya Shema and its brachos. Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda makes Kriya Shema and its brachos like Hilchos Derech Eretz. Now, what does Hilchos Derech Eretz mean? We're going to see that in a brayso in just a minute. There's a Maseches, which is like a small, historically a little bit later than Talmud Bavli, but it's a compilation of braisos having to do with different laws of derech eretz, different laws of how a person should comport himself over the course of the day, and it's a very abbreviated maseches. In other words, what Rabbi Yehuda does allow for is that if you have a completely self-contained unit of study, then he allows a balkeri to cover that because it's very short. And therefore, even though there's a takana from Ezra that a balkeri cannot study Torah, if it's a very abbreviated confined set of study, then it's permitted, and therefore Rabbi Yehuda gives the dispensation also for Kriya Shema and its brachos. D'Tanya, as the brayso says, "V'hodatam levanecha v'livnei vanecha." So let's take a look at this long brisa where we're going to get to the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda in just a minute. The Torah says, "You shall teach your sons, and you shall teach your sons and your sons' sons, teach your children and your children's children Torah." And it says right afterwards, like the day that you stood on Har Sinai. So the connection between these two psukim is Malahalan be'emo v'yiro v'reses uvezeya, Avkan be'emo v'yiro v'reses uvezeya. That just like at Maimad Har Sinai you were filled with trepidation and fear, so too when you teach your children Torah, it has to be taught with trepidation and fear. Mikan Amru, from here the rabbis taught, Hazovim v'hamitzorayim u'boin al nidos, Mutarim likros b'Torah u'vanavim u'va'kasuvim, Lishanos b'Mishnah u'Gemara u'va'halachos u'va'agados. From here we learn that if a person has tumah, but that tumah was not brought on through frivolity, the tumah was not brought on through lightheadedness, that is usually brought up, that in other words, in contradistinction to marital relations, which is brought on, the tumah of Keri is brought on through frivolity. But if a person's tumah was not brought on through frivolity such that he can maintain his composure of reses and zeya, of fear and trepidation when he's teaching Torah, then there's no holds barred on the amount of Torah that he's allowed to study. Aval bali kiryan asura, but a balkeri, whose tumah was brought on by a sense of frivolity and levity and so forth, and fun with his wife, there, that person is not permitted to study Torah, because that's in contrast to what it was like at Har Sinai. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Shonahi beregilios uvilvad shelo yatzias ha-mishnah. Rabbi Yossi is more liberal, and he says that a balkeri is allowed to study only certain parts of Torah that are rugil to him, that are very well known. He's got them very well memorized, provided that he does not teach Mishnah to others. He can just study it himself as long as he knows it by heart. Rabbi Yonasan ben Yosef Omer, Matziyahu es ha-mishnah ve'ein matziyah es ha-gemara. So Rabbi Yonasan says that he's only allowed to teach, he says he is allowed to teach, but he's only allowed to teach Mishnah to others, but he's not allowed to teach Gemara, which requires a greater amount of intellectual exposition. That he's not allowed to, because it requires more getting involved in thought and so forth. That he's not allowed to teach to other people. Rashi's girsa is midrash, because Rashi says that the issue here is that there's a lot of citation of biblical text when we talk about midrash. So there's two different girsaos here, whether it's midrash or Gemara. We'll just stay with Gemara.
Mishnah is from a kedusha point of view, on a higher level than Gemara.
Right, but Gemara requires more explication, more detail, and so forth. Rabbi Nassim ben Avi Shalom Omer, Af Matziyas HaGemara, Uvilvad Shelo Yomar Askaro Shabo. And Rabbi Nassim says that you're allowed to even teach Gemara or Midrash to others, provided that you don't cite Hashem's name expressly, because you're a Balkari. Rabbi Yochanan Hasamler Talmida Shel Rabbi Akiva Mishum Rabbi Akiva Omer, Lo Yikanes Lamedrash Kol Iker, he's more Machmir, Rabbi Yochanan Hasamler, and he says that you're not allowed to engage in any Midrashic study whatsoever. In other words, neither Mishnah nor Gemara. And va'amri lo yikanes lebeis hamedrash kol iker, and some say you can't even walk into the beis medrash if you're a balkari. So, by the way, what we're going to be seeing throughout this daf today are a whole variety of attitudes towards Takanas Ezra, as far as what a balkari is and is not allowed to study. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shonahu Hilchos Derech Eretz, and this is where we get now to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says as long as you have a self-contained small unit of study like Hilchos Derech Eretz, then it's acceptable. Ma'isa b'Rebbe Yehuda Shara Keri v'Hayah Malach al Gabi Anor. So now the Brisa brings a story. Once this very same Rebbe Yehuda was walking by the river banks with his students. Amru lo Talmid of Rabbeinu Shanei Lanu Perek Echad b'Hilchos Derech Eretz. And because he was a Balkari, his student said, Rebbe, teach us a chapter from the laws of Derech Eretz. Yorad v'Tavel v'Shanalem. He says, so wait a minute, he says. He jumps into the river and is Toivel, and then when he gets out, he teaches them. So Amru lo kach limadatonu Rabbeinu shonahu b'Hilchos Derech Eretz. But Rebbe, didn't you teach us that it's permitted to study the laws of Derech Eretz, even if you're a Balkari? Amr lahem afal pisha meikal ani al acherim machmer ani al atzmi. Even though I am lenient for others, for myself I'm machmer to go to mikveh. So you see, and even to this day, there are plenty of people who know that the halacha is that Ezra's takana was rescinded, which we'll see in just a moment. Nevertheless, they're machmir al atzmam. It's a minhag chassidus to go to mikveh every day.
It was appropriate for him to tell his Talmud he was a Baal Keri.
Yeah, I was going to ask that too. I was very surprised.
Maybe they knew he was a Baal Keri. Well, maybe I don't know. I don't know how they would know. But
You can tell if he's learning derech eretz.
he was. The point is that he was. He said to them, "Excuse me, I got to go to mikveh first." There was nothing. It was. As we see from all of these gemaras, it was much more common for people being roa keri was a much more. In other words, it wasn't. There was no stigma behind it as much. Because it required a person to know whether he could study Torah or not. So you'd have to divulge this information. So Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira haya omer, ein divrei Torah mekablim tuma. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira is the most liberal, and as we'll see, he is of the opinion that Ezra's takana no longer applies. Because what does he say? He says that words of Torah cannot be subjected to tum at all. So even though a Baal Keri is tameh, he's still allowed to study Torah, no holds barred. Ma'isa b'talmud echad shahaya megamgem l'mayla meRabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. There was once a situation where there was a student who was mumbling the words of Torah. Now we'll see on Amud Beis that if a person realizes that he's a Baal Keri, then he's in the middle of a Torah parsha, then he's not obligated to stop. He shouldn't stop in the middle, but he should quickly run through and mumble the words as quickly as possible to finish. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira saw that this kid, was doing the same thing because he was a Baal Keri, and he wanted to mumble through the words. So Amar lei b'ni psach picha v'yiru divarecha shein divrei Torah mekablim tuma. He says, my son, that's unnecessary. Open your mouth and let your mouth illuminate the words. Why? Because the words of Torah cannot become tameh. Shenamar halo kol divarai ka'esh na'um Hashem. As Scripture says, my words are like fire, says God. Ma'esh eno makabel tuma af divrei Torah eno makabel tuma. Just like fire cannot become tameh, so too words of Torah. It doesn't matter if you're a Baal Keri, go right ahead. Amar mar matzias ha-mishnah ve'eno matzias ha-gemor. Now let's take a look at one of the previous opinions, which was that a Baal Keri is only allowed to teach Mishnah, he's not allowed to teach Gemara. V'sayei le Rabbi Eloi, dam Rabbi Eloi, am Rabbi Acha bar Yaakov, mishum Rabbeinu, halacha matzias ha-mishnah ve'eno matzias ha-gemara. And this is consistent with Rabbi Eloi's teachings. And now the Gemara says, Kitanai, it's a machlokas tanoim. Matzias ha-mishnah ve'enu matzias ha-gemara. Divrei Rav Meir. Rav Meir says exactly the same way, that you're only allowed to teach Mishnah and not Gemara. And Rabbi Yehuda ben Gamliel, Omer Mishum Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel, Zevazeh Aser, he says both are forbidden to teach. V'amri la Zevazeh Mutter, and some say both are permitted to teach. Manda Amar Zevazeh Aser, Rabbi Yochanan HaSandler. If you hold both are Aser to teach, it's because you hold like Rabbi Yochanan HaSandler, who says any kind of exposition while you're a Baal Keri is Aser. And Manda Amar Zevazeh Mutter, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. And if you hold that both are Mutter, both Mishnah and Gemara Mutter, is because like you hold like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, that the Takon of Ezra was rescinded. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Nahu Alma Kahani Tlasavi. The Welt, the world, comports itself like the following three elder Tanoim. Now, Rabbi Eloi Berachos Hagez, like Rabbi Eloi when it comes to the first shearings, Rabbi Yoshia B'Kilaim, Rabbi Yoshia by forbidden vegetable mixtures, and Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira B'Divrei Torah. And like Yehuda ben Beseira when it comes to Torah study. Now we'll explain. Rabbi Eloi Berachos Hagez, the Tanya Rabbi Eloi Omer Berachos Hagez, and Unohi Gela Ba'aretz. Rabbi Eloi had said that the requirement to give your first shearings of the sheep's fleece to the Kohen only applies in Eretz Yisrael, but not outside of Eretz Yisrael. And that's the way people in Bavel conduct themselves. Rabbi Yoshia b'kilayim. What's the case of Rabbi Yoshia in mixed seeds? Kedetziv lo sizra karmecha kilayim. Do not plant your vineyard kilayim. And Rabbi Yoshia omer la'olamenu chayav ad sheyizra chita usaora v'chartzan b'mapolis yad. That you're only liable for the Torah violation if you plant a barley seed, a wheat seed, and a grape seed all together with one thrust of the hand, but otherwise not. And Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira b'divrei Torah, and we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira when it comes to Torah study. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Omer ein divrei Torah mekabel and tuma, that bichlal there's no holds barred on Torah study if you're a Baal Keri. Kiyasa Zeiri Omar batluha l'tevilusa. And Zeiri came along and said in the same vein that the rabbis completely nullified the requirement to go to mikveh in order to be able to study Torah. Va'amri la bitluha l'nitilusa. Some say that they abolished or nullified the requirement to wash hands. Now, this is, it would seem, is to wash hands in order to daven, as we'll see in just a second. Manda Amar Bitlua L'Tevilusak Rabbi Yehuda and Beseira. If you hold that they annulled the decree of Tvila, it's because he holds like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. And Manda Amar Bitlua L'Netilusa, but if you hold that they nullify the requirement to wash hands, is Kihada Rav Chisda Layatamanda Mahada Ramaya Be'idan Slusa. Is in support of the story that Rav Chisda condemned a person for searching for water before he began davening. He said, what do you hakin a shainik? Just go and daven already. Because Rav Chisda felt that the requirement to wash hands before tefillah was no longer extant. Tana Rabbana, Balkeri shenasnu alav tisha kabin mayim tahor. Now we have a new opinion, which is that tevila for a balkeri is not required, but there's something else that you should do. That as long as you pour tes kabin, 9 kabs of water, which I don't know exactly how much it is, but it's a lot less than 40 sa'as in a mikvah, right? It's like
3.4 gallons.
3.4 gallons. Certainly you cover that in a shower, right? So if you take a shower, pour shower water over a person's body, so then that obviates the problem of being a balkeri and you can study Torah. Nachum ishgamzu licha shel Rabbi Akiva, v'Rabbi Akiva licha shel Ben Azai, Ben Azai yotza v'shana l'talmid of Bishop. Now the Gemara relates that Nachum ishgamzu, who's Rabbi Akiva's Rebbe, he whispered that halacha to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva whispered that halacha to his student Ben Azai, and Ben Azai went out to the shuk and publicly announced it to his students. Now, Pligi Batrei Amoroi b'Marava, Rabbi Yossi bar Abin, Rabbi Yossi bar Zvidas, the two Palestinian or Israeli sages argue about this story. Chad Tani Shana, v'Chad Tani Lachsha. One says that Ben Azai publicly announced it, and the other one says that he whispered it. Manda Tani Shana, Mishum Bittul Torah, Mishum Bittul Prior Revia. If you learn that Ben Azai publicly announced it, why did he do that? He did it because he felt that this requirement to immerse oneself needs to be alleviated, and that it's enough just to pour the 3.something gallons over yourself. Why? Because if we require people to go to mikveh every time, one of two negative things is going to happen. Either guys are not going to study as much Torah because they're going to say, I'm a Balkari. Sorry, Balkari, can't be at the base medrash today, can't come to shir today. Or they're going to say to their wives, I'm sorry, honey, I got to go to the base medrash tomorrow. We can't have intimacy tonight because I don't have access to a mikveh. So we're going to have to put off having more children. So the point is that one of two negative things is going to happen. So Ben Azai felt that it was a mitzvah to alleviate the requirement to go to mikveh. And Uman Detani Lichasha Shaloyu Talmidei Chachamim Mitzumetzon Neshosem Ketana Goim. The other opinion who says that Ben Azai did not publicly announce this, but only shared it with a choice number of students, is because he did not want Talmidei Chachamim to abuse the intimacy with their wives, because the Talmid Chacham, even with his own wife, has to be tsanua, has to be chaste, and has to practice some level of asceticism in order to elevate himself in ruchnius, and therefore it's better that you minimize your frequency with your wife and spend more time in the basement. I've heard that some are mekel to allow tes kabin, and I've heard that some people are machmir to require tefillah b'mikvah. If anyone who's machmir will have long lives. So he clearly is an advocate for the mikvah, tefillah b'mikvah, and not for the tes kabin. And by the way, we're just going to see a wide variety of different opinions. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Mativan shel tov le'shachrin. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, what good or what benefit are those who go to mikveh in the morning? So frak the Gemara Mativan ha'yihu damar balkeri osur b'divrei Torah. What kind of question is he asking? He himself was quoted as saying that a balkeri can't study Torah. So hachi kamer Mativan be'arboim sa efsha b'tisha kabi. What he's really asking is, what's the point of having to find a mikveh of 40 sa'ah? Just have the tes kabin. And mativan b'tfila efshar b'nesina. What's the point of immersing yourself? It's sufficient if you just have the water poured over you. So Amar Rabbi Chanina, Geder Gadol Gadruba. The Rabbi Chanina says that the rabbis placed a big fence around this halacha. The Tanya Maisa be'echad shetava isha l'dvar avera. In other words, he's an advocate for actually tevila b'mikveh. He doesn't feel that the tes kabin is sufficient, and he proves it from this point. He says there's a story about a man who his Yetzer Hara, he was a God-fearing man, but his Yetzer Hara got the best of him. and he saw this very attractive single girl, and he said, "Come on, honey, let's have some fun." So Amr lo Reika yesh lechar boim sana sha'at toivel bahen. So she said, "Empty one. Do you have a mikveh that you can go to so you can be at the Beis Medrash tomorrow morning to learn?" So when he heard that, miyad piresh. So immediately he desisted. He was able to conquer his Yetzer Hara. So you see from here that the mikveh, the requirement to go to mikveh after intimacy, is in itself a great disincentive for Averim.
That was really worked well today.
You picked the wrong woman.
Okay, we'll let you write your own commentary. Amar lahu Ravuna l'Rabbana. Ravuna says to the Chachamim, Rabbosai mipnei ma'atem mezalzelin b'tefila zu. So Ravuna says, Rabbosai, why are you sort of abusing and not taking seriously this requirement to go to mikveh in Arboim Sa? Imi shum tzina efsha b'mer chatzos. And he said to them, if your concern is because in the winter months to require a guy to go to the lake, to go to mikveh, to study Torah, that's torture. So he says, and his is now in middle position. He says, tes kabin is too lenient. Going to a mikveh that's in the ground like a kosher mikveh, that I don't require. But here's a middle position. Require 40 sa'ah of tap water in a bathhouse. That's okay, he says, as long as, but there should still be immersion in 40 sa'ahs of water, even if it's mayim she'uvim, even if it's tap water. So Amalei Rav Chisda v'chiyesh tefillah b'chamin. So Rav Chisda says, since what's the point of that? Since when can tefillah be done in tap water? Amalei Ravada bar Ahava koi kavasach. So he said to him, Ravada bar Ahava holds like you that doesn't work, but I disagree. Rabbi Zera hava Yoseph ba'agna demaya be'masusa. So Rabbi Zera was once sitting in a bathtub that presumably had enough water for a balkari, but of course it's above ground and it's in a bathtub. Amr lei l'shamei zil va'isi litisha kabin b'shadi iluyi. And he said to his attendant, he said, get a pitcher of tes kabin and pour it over me. So Amr lei Rabbi Chia bar Abba lama lei lamar kulehai. So Rabbi Chia bar Abba, I guess he's witness to this, and he says, why did you need him to pour tes kabin over you? V'hayasef b'gavayu. After all, you're sitting in the bathtub. So Amar Lei Karboim Sa Amar Boim Sa B'Tfila V'Lo B'Nesina Avtisha Kabin B'Nesina V'Lo B'Tfila. The answer is that your bathtub has to be like a mikveh, just like the mikveh. You have to, in other words, presumably, I guess the bathtub had maybe less than 40 sa'ah. Let me just modify. The bathtub had less than 40 sa'ah, but it had more than tes kabin. So Rabbi Chia said to him, so then if you have tes kabin and your whole body's in the tes kabin, so then what do you need them to pour the pitcher over you? So he said, no, because just like when you immerse yourself, you have to have immersion and not pouring over you, so too when the Chachamim made the takana of tes kabin, it was dafka to be poured over you and not to immerse into. So therefore, it's got to choose one or the other, either immerse in 40 sa mikvah or have tes kabin poured over you. So Rav Nachman tikein chatzva bastisha kabin. Rav Nachman, who was a fan of this tes kabin, he created for his Beis Medrash a special pitcher that would hold tes kabin, so that when a guy would come to the Beis Medrash, Rav Nachman would say, are you a balkari? Here, stand over here. Immediately they'd pour the pitcher over him, and they say, okay, now you can come into the Beis Medrash. Ki asa Rav Dimi Amar Rabbi Akiva v'Rebbi Yehuda glustera Amru lo shanu ela l'chayla la'onso v'lo l'chola hamargil arboim sa. So Rav Dimi said, I'm sorry, but this pitcher of tes kabin only works for a person who has two deficiencies. Number one, he's got to be a choyle, he's got to be of weak constitution. And number two, what's the second thing is? It has to be an unpremeditated carry. Now there's two types of carry. One is through intimacy with one's wife, and the other one is through a nocturnal emission. So only when it's unpremeditated, where there was no planned carry, is a person allowed to, and he has a weak constitution, can he rely on this tes kabin. So Amar Rav Yosef, Itvar Chatzvei de Rav Nachman. As a result, Rav Nachman's pitcher, either literally or figuratively, was broken, meaning that it lost its primary, most of its function. Ki asa Rabin Amar Ba'usha Hava Uvda B'Kil'a de Rav Oshia. There was once a Maisa, there was a man who was standing in the portico or the lobby of Rav Oshia's house or his Beis Medrash, where there was a shaila what to do with him because he was a balkari. Asu v'shalu l'Ravasi amar lahu lo shanu ela l'chola hamargila v'lochola la'onso pater miklon. And he said that the only requirement for tes kabin is if the person is of weak constitution and it's premeditated. But if he's a chayla and it's unpremeditated, then he doesn't need anything at all, and they let him go right into the base medrash to learn without anything at all. Amar Rav Yosef, it's Tamid Chatzvei de Rav Nachman. So Rav Yosef says, well, then we better fix the picture of Rav Nachman has been repaired, because according to this opinion, anyone who has a weak constitution and has premeditated carry would need teskabin. So let's fix Rav Nachman's picture. In other words, now Rashi on Amud Aleph points out that in the time when this Gemara is being written, all Talmidei Chachamim have the din of a chayla, have a din of a sickly constitution, because Torah weakens one's constitution. Guys don't go to the gym, they have pale color, right? In other words, and the Torah has a natural effect of weakening a person's body, and therefore, for a guy who's a Torah umnaso, he's studying Torah all day, and he's a balkari, according to this, even if it's a premeditated balkari, he can use the teskabin. So mechdi kulu amoroi v'tanoi b'de Ezra kamiflugi v'nechzi Ezra hechitika. So the Gemara now just says, wait a minute, let's just ask a general question. We got all of these machloksim back and forth as to what Ezra's takana was. Why don't we just ask and find out what was Ezra's original takana? In other words, like Tosfos says, there was an accurate historical record going back to the time of Ezra. This was a very prevalent practice among all of Klal Yisrael. So why don't we just find out what people have been doing for generations? So Amar Abaya Ezra Tikein Labari Hamargil Memsa Ubari Laonso Teskabin. So really what happened was like this. During Ezra's time, people had a stronger constitution. So his takana was that if a person's healthy and it's a premeditated carry, he has to go to mikvah. And if it's an unpremeditated carry, he needs teskabin. So the later rabbis came along and discussed, well, what about people with weak constitutions? One manda Omar holds that there's no difference between a bari and a chayla, a healthy and a sickly person. The same takana of Ezra applies. And the other manda Omar says no, that if you're sickly, you get downgraded a notch, and so therefore, even if it's a premeditated carry, all you need is teskabin, and if it's a unpremeditated carry, you don't need anything. Amar Rava Nehida Tiken Ezra Tefila Nesina Mi Tiken. Rava says, I'm sorry, Abaya, but I have to disagree. Where do you ever see that Ezra made this takana of teskabin? He made a takana only of tefillah. The Amar Mar Ezra Tiken Tefila LeBalkirin, as the language implies that Ezra only made one takana that a balkari has to go to mikvah. So Ela Amar Rava, so rather Rava says, Ezra Tikein Tefila Labari Hamargil Memsa, that really Ezra's original takana was only that a healthy person who is premeditated has to go to mikvah of 40 sahs. The Chachamim added on to that and said, if you're healthy and it's an unpremeditated carry, so then all you need is teskabin to be poured over you. And then even later rabbis, the Amoraim, came along and said, well, what about guys with sickly constitutions like our yeshiva bachrim today? What should be their status? One opinion is that there's no difference, that just like a bari, if it's premeditated, needs a mikvah, and if it's unpremeditated, needs teskabin, so too a chayla. And the other mandomer says, no, you downgrade a person who's sickly one level. And therefore, if a person is healthy and he's premeditated, he goes to a mikvah. But if he's a chayla, then all he needs is teskabin. And if he's a chayla and it's unpremeditated, he doesn't need anything at all. Amar Rava, Hilchasa Bari Hamargil V'chola Hamargil Arboim Sar. So the final halacha is that a bari who is margil, if a healthy person is premeditated and a chayla is premeditated, they both need mikvah 40 sah. Ubari la'onso tishakabin avalachala la'onso pater miklum. And if he's healthy and it's unpremeditated, he needs teskabin. And if he's sickly and unpremeditated, he doesn't need anything at all. Now, again, I just want to point out that Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira seems to be the prevailing psak in most poskim, that for Talmud Torah, even a premeditated and it's healthy and you're a healthy guy, you don't need to go to mikvah. Me'ikar hadin. Tana Rabbanim, Balkeri shenaslo lav teskabin mayim tahar. That if a balkeri has 9 kavs of water poured over him, he's Torah. But that's only true if he wants to study Torah for himself. But if he wants to instruct others, so then he needs a mikvah 40 saw. Rabbi Yehuda Omer mem saw mikol makam. Rabbi Yehuda says he can use 40 saw no matter what. Now, what do the words "no matter what" mean? We'll see in just a second. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina. So we have these 4 sages, Chad mihai zuga v'chad mihai zuga, aresha, that two out of these 4 dispute the meaning of the resha of that brisa. Chad amar hadi amart b'med devar mamurim la'atzma avol la'acher memsa lo shanu elo l'choyle hamargil avol l'cholo la'onso tes kabin. When does the brisa require you to go to mikvah when you're sickly and you want to teach other people? That's only when the carry was premeditated. But if the carry was unpremeditated, then even if you're going to be teaching other people, all you need is 9 kavs. And then the other Manda Amar says, V'chad Amar kol acher mafilu cholula onso adika memsa. And the other Manda Amar says, no, that even if it's unpremeditated carry, as long as you want to teach other people, you always got to find the mikvah 40 saws. V'chad mihai zuga aseifa. And 2 of the rabbis of this group of 4 argue about the second part, which talks about the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Chad Amar Had Amar Rabbi Yehuda memsa mikol makom lo shanu elo bekarka vol bekelim lo. One Manda Amar says that when Rabbi Yehuda says 40 saws always works no matter what, that's only referring to 40 saws that's in an underground mikvah, meaning a mikvah that's dug into the ground. Aval bekelim lo, but if it's a bathtub which is removable from the ground, it's not mechuber lekarka, since it's in a kli, that does not work. And the other Mandormer says no. Even if the water is just poured into a kli, as long as you have 40 saw, that immersion works for a balkari. So Bishlam Lamanda Omer Afilu Bekalim Haina Dikatani Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mem Sa'a Mikol Makam. If you learn that Rabbi Yehuda says that 40 saws in a kli is acceptable, that's why the language is Mikol Makam, that Rabbi Yehuda says no matter how you get the water in there, it's okay. Avol Lamanda Omer Bekarke in Bekalim Lo Mikol Makam Lasu Yemai. But if you're telling me that he requires davka, that it has to be an in-ground mikvah, so then what did he mean by the words mikol makam, no matter what? So la'asuye ma'im shuvim. The answer is that there's 2 issues here. One is, does it have to be an in-ground mikvah or can it be in a kli? And the other issue is, what is the status of the water? Must the water be naturally flowing water or can it be drawn water from the tap? So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion, according to this Mandamar, that even though it has to be an in-ground mikvah, not in a kli, but the water can be ma'im she'uvim, the water can be tap water. Rav Papa Rav Huna Berei Derav Yehoshua V'Rava Bar Shmuel Krichu Rifti Bahadi Hadadis. Now the Gemara brings a story to conclude this whole discussion. These 3 great sages were once breaking bread together, and it was time to bench. So Amalei Rav Papa Havuli Lididi Livroch Denafali Luyai Tes Gavin. Rav Papa says, I would like to bench, and I deserve to bench because 9 kavs of water passed over me to purify me from my carry. Amar Lahu Rava Bar Shmuel Tanina Bamedvar Mamurim Latzmo Valacher Memsa. So Rava Bar Shmuel says, but wait a minute. The Brisa says that's only when you're studying for yourself. But if you want to be motzi other people in the bracha, which was what a birkas azimun is, you have to go to a mikvah. And you didn't go to a mikvah, you just had 9 kabim. So but rather give me to bench because I taka went to the mikvah. So an Amar Lahu Rav Huna Havalili Didi Livroch Deleka Eloi Lohai Velohai. And Rav Huna says, no, I should bench because I had neither tes kabin or tefillah b'mikvah. You know why? Because I'm not a bal keri. So let me bench. So there, Mendel, you see, they were very frank about their personal status. Rav Huna said, I should bench, I'm not a bal keri, so give me the bench. Rav Chama Tovel b'mala yoma de pischal hotzi rabbi midei chavasim v'lasil chasakavase. Rav Chama used to go to mikvah on Erev Pesach, because I guess the night of the Seder he used to be motzi, a large assemblage of people at his Seder and benching. But concludes the Gemara, the halacha is not like him, and at least according to one opinion in Rashi, what that means is because we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, who does not require tefillah b'mikvah at all. We're going to finish this daf, guys, no matter what. Hayaomei b'tefillah, b'niskar shehu balkeri. The Mishnah says that if a person was in the middle of Shmon Esrei, and he realizes that he's a Balkari. Now, this goes according to the Takan of Ezra, right? So a Balkari is not allowed to study words of Torah nor in be engrossed in prayer. So lo yafsik ela yikatzer. So he shouldn't stop in the middle of his Shemona Esrei, but rather abbreviate his Amida to finish it as quickly as possible. Yorad Litvol, if he went to the mikvah, and here now we're talking about a person who is, it's in the morning, and remember we saw a variety of opinions as to when the deadline to recite Kriya Shema is in the morning. This Mishnah seems to be going according to the more stringent opinion that you only have until Hanei Tzachama, until sunrise, to recite Kriya Shema. So here's this guy's dilemma. He's a Balkari going to the mikveh in the pre-sunrise hours. His dilemma is that by the time he gets out of the mikveh and gets dressed, it'll already be too late to recite Kriya Shema. But if he has time, he should get out of the mikveh, get dressed, and recite Kriya Shema. But if not, then let him stay in the mikveh without his clothes on, but as long as the water is covering him, he can recite Kriya Shema inside the mikveh. But when he covers himself with water, he may not cover himself with foul-smelling or foul water, dirty water, that's either bad water or gutter water, because you're not allowed to recite Kriya Shema in the presence of foul odors and dirtiness, until you pour water in them to diffuse the foulness of the water. And as we'll see here, that this is inclusive of urine. The Gemara is going to tell me that there's an additional halacha that's in here as well, that in the presence of urine you cannot recite Kriya Shema. And how much must you distance yourself from these foul waters and from feces? You have to distance yourself at least 4 amos in order to recite Kriya Shema. Tana Rabbanan, Hayomid B'tfila V'nisker Shuhu Balkari. A person's in the middle of Shemona Esrei and realizes that he's a Balkari, Lo Yafsik Ela Yikatzer. He should not stop, but rather should finish quickly and abbreviate his prayer. Hayakari B'Torah V'nisker Shuhu Balkari, Eno Mafsik V'Ola Ela Megam Game V'Kore. If he's in the middle of reading a parsha of Torah, then don't stop reading when you remember you're a Balkari, but rather what should you do? You should mumble through it as quickly as possible to finish quickly. Rabbi Meir Omer Ein Balkari Rashai Likros B'Torah Yoser Megimel Psukim. Rabbi Meir says the Balkari can never read more than 3 psukim. So I guess he disagrees and holds that if there's more than 3 psukim left in the parsha, then taka you do have to interrupt. Tanya Idach, another brisa says, Hayomid B'Tfila V'Roat Soa Kenegdo, that if a person was standing in the midst of prayer and he sees feces in front of him, Mahalech Lefanav Ad Sheyizrakena La'achur of Dalet Amos. So you should walk away from the fecal matter until the feces is behind you at least 4 amos. The Hatanya Lidstad. There's another brisa that implies that you only have to make sure that it's 4 amos away from you, even if it's to your side. It doesn't have to be behind you. Lokashya hada efshar hada lo efshar. The Gemara says the one case is talking about where it's possible to stand in front of the feces, and the other case is where there's something blocking your ability to move in front of the feces. You can only move to the side of it. Let's say you're in front of a body of water that limits your ability to maneuver around. So therefore, in that situation, you move to the side if you can't move in front. If a person's in the middle of davening, in the middle of Shemona Esrei, and he finds that there's feces right next to him, where does this happen? When you're in your living room, and your little baby comes over to you, your little grandchild comes over to you, and the diaper says good up until 20 pounds. So you figure that means that you can, anyway. But the halacha is you can't daven Shemona Esrei now. So Amar Rabba afal pi shechata tefila so tefila. Even though you sinned and you continue davening Shemona Esrei, your tefila is a good tefila. B'di'evid your yotzei the tefila. So maschif lo Rava v'hazevach rishonim ta'eva. But doesn't the Torah say that the offerings of the wicked is abominable? That God does not accept a prayer that is offered in sin. And therefore Rava says that no, the prayer is an abomination, and therefore, like some Sfarim have in here, what should you do? You have to go back and daven Shemona Esrei. Tana Rabbanan, we'll have to analyze this more thoroughly later, but if a person's in the middle of Shemona Esrei, and all of a sudden he cannot hold it in any longer, his urine, and therefore he urinates, nebach, he's incontinent because because basically he had to go to the bathroom before he started Shemona Esrei. He thought he could finish Shemona Esrei before he had to pish. And Nebuch just couldn't hold it in. So he urinates while he's in the middle of Shemona Esrei. So posek ad sheyichlu hamayim v'chozer mispalo. So what he should do is that he should interrupt his prayers until he finishes urinating, and then after he's finished urinating, then he should commence with his prayers. Leich and chozer, where does he go back to? Reb Chisda, Rav Hamnuna, we have a machlokes. Chad omer l'rosh, v'chad omer l'makom shepasak. One says he goes back to the beginning, and the other one says he should go to where he left off. And we'll explain the machlokes Mirz Hashem tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.